Welcome to the Gathering Reviews. I'm Casey, and this is
Eric. How you guys doing?
And we will be covering the blue color for Born of the Gods, the new set for the Theros block. Starting us off, Eric, why don't you start us off here?
This is Airy Worshippers. This is a creature human cleric. It's a 2/4 for 3 and a blue. It has inspired. Whenever Airy Worshippers becomes untapped, you may pay 2 and a blue. If you do, put a 2/2 bird, a blue bird enchantment creature token with flying onto the battlefield. Two things, very important. If you don't know what Inspired is and you'd like to understand it a little better, we did a complete review on this ability. You can check that out on our channel.
We also covered Tribute.
We also covered Tribute. And the other very important thing about that is we also covered the other colors, which they have a full cycle of these. So if you're wondering what the other ones are, you can check out our reviews on those, as well as, check out the other reviews on the other cards, obviously. The thing is, I really don't like this card for a couple of reasons.
You're only paying 3 for a 2/2 flyer?
How are you going to tap it? You can't just go, tap, alright, your turn. It doesn't work that way. You have to do something to get this card to tap. And a lot of people go, well, attack. Yeah, they'll block, but it's not going to, kill your creature. Maybe not the first time. I need something to reliably tap this creature every turn to get value. And even then, paying 2 and a blue for a 2/2, I could think of some other stuff I might want to do. Like, once again, like I talked about with the journal, this is probably going to be one of those cards in late game. It's going to be sweet.
So you've got the mana to dedicate.
When you got the mana to dedicate, you got some stuff that you can tap her with. I'm otherwise not really impressed by her.
I'm not going
gave
to
her a
tap
4.
Yeah, I gave her a 5 because I liked the defense, but we
True.
saw it all as well. Like, okay, it's basically a Great Heart with Inspired.
Yeah. What's the next card here?
Next, we have Arbiter of the Ideal. This is the Destiny Pack promo for blue. It is a creature Sphinx for 4 and double blue. It's a 4/5 with flying and also inspired. Whenever Arbiter of the Ideal becomes untapped, reveal the top card of your library. If it's an artifact, creature, or land card, you may put it onto the battlefield with a manifestation counter on it. That permanent is an enchantment in addition to its other types.
Quick thing to note, the manifestation counter has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that it is also an enchantment in addition to its other types.
If maybe, obviously not unlimited, but if at some point constructed, the counter gets removed for whatever reason, it's still an enchantment. It's just there for flavor. Now, I like this one not as much as some of the other promos that we've looked at, only because of the fact that it's got the least amount of power and toughness for its mana cost. I like it's inspired.
I think the fact alone that it has one of the main abilities for this block is really sweet.
It's definitely got one of the more powerful inspired abilities.
Not even just that. The fact that it has evasion, it can regularly get this to go off. It's well rounded as far as the cost goes. I've paid 6 mana before for a 4/5 flyer with far worse abilities. I mean, you pay 5 mana for a 4/4 flyer. Why not tack on one more colorless mana? Yeah. Give it another toughness and give it the sweet inspired ability.
I really do like this card more in this set than I would have probably in another set, just because of all the scry. So I had to give it a 6.
I actually gave this a 7 because of the fact that there's an enchantment in this color in this set that works super good with this. Not to mention the fact that there is an artifact in Theros, because we're getting 2 packs of Theros. You could get this with that artifact, that scry artifact, and now you have a perfect engine to scry. Okay, that's a good card. I'll leave that there. Next turn, pop that onto the battlefield.
So it's an all around good card. Next we're moving on to the blue archetype.
This is the archetype of imagination. Unfortunately, the person who did the art for this, not super imaginative.
Not really imaginative about it.
It's 4 and 2 blue.
Screwed it up!
It's 4 and 2 blue for a creature, enchantment creature.
This is what we need.
Human wizard.
Squealy girl laughs in the background.
You're
ruining everything.
You know what the worst part is? She's throwing me off too. So,
I'm sorry, I'll go right now.
archetype, let's start over on that one. Archetype of imagination, 4 and 2 blue, enchantment creature, human wizard. He casts a spell to give everybody flying, apparently. 3/2. Creatures you control have flying. Creatures your opponent control lose flying and cannot have or gain flying. So basically, for 6 mana, all of your creatures are unblockable. You know what? I like him in a lot of ways, but at the same time, he's so late game. I have a feeling that I would have much rather played a spell that just gave all my creatures flying.
Right, and I had to give him a low score. I had to give him a 5 because although yes, he does technically make all your creatures unblockable besides reach, you are paying double blue and 4 colorless for what's technically a 3/2 with flying.
Yeah, and you know what the other thing is you have to remember, in a nutshell, if you play this on turn 6, how excited are you really going to be?
If he's the only creature on the field.
No, I mean, if let's just say everybody else has just been playing land the whole game, in turn 6, this is your first card you get to play. It's a little underwhelming.
Yeah.
And I think, personally, it's not worth it. So I gave this a 5 as well. It's still playable. Like, I'd still play one of these to get around my opponent on turn 6. And, you know, really hope they didn't have a field wiping answer for this guy. You know, because you attack all out, and then they kill it, and suddenly your creatures all hit the ground. And it's very realistic that your opponent has an answer for every one of them.
Yeah. And like I said, if he is the only creature you're playing on turn 6, he's just a 3/2 with flying.
Go ahead.
So moving along here, we have Chorus of the Tides. It's a creature siren for 3 and a blue. She's a 3/2 with flying, heroic. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Chorus of Tides, scry 1.
Now you know what's interesting. I think we want to do the same thing with that other inspired creature we did in white. If you were to look at this card and go 3/2 for 3 and a blue with flying, that's an okay card. I mean, it's not a fantastic card. There are some other cards that we've played in limited that do the same thing, and we're talking about limited here. This is not a constructed card. I would say that this is a 5. The fact that it has a heroic ability, the chances are you're never going to get it to even go off. Because this isn't going to be one of those cards you build on. Blue doesn't have a lot of enchantments. If you splash white, this is probably going to be one of those cards you're not going to even think about.
This is one of the cards that have heroic I can't see a reason why it would have that kind of heroic. It's just like a heroic that you don't want to activate.
Like I said,
so
I
it's
think
just really a 3/2
personally,
with flying.
it's just going to be a 3/2 with flying for 4. It's not super exciting, but you know, given the chance that you maybe throw 1 enchantment on it, it kind of helps you. Yeah. I don't know. I don't really like this card, but I can guarantee you I'm going to hate it.
It was a 4 for me.
Next card we got coming up here is Crypsis. Now, this is a really interesting spell, not just for the art, which, mind you, the art in this set has probably been better than art in almost any other set I've seen. Crypsis, 1 and a blue, instant. Target creature you control gains protection from creatures your opponent controls until end of turn. Untap it.
No. This is the only protection spell in this set.
Yeah.
It is the only spell that gives protection.
Now here's something really interesting, and this is something I'd like to point out with people that are thinking of this as simply as a defensive spell. Okay, I'll untap my creature and I'll block your creature. This is also a perfect way to activate Inspired multiple times, to get that attack in that you really want, and to make use of utility creatures. For instance, the Sphinx.
Arbiter of Ideals.
Yeah, the Arbiter of Ideals. So you put some ability on it that taps it. Your opponent thinks, oh, he's going to attack. You tap, you use the ability, and then your opponent thinks, well, that was strange. I was almost positive he was going to attack.
Well, now I gotta
My
wait
board's
till
pretty
turn,
open.
no.
And then you play this. You get your Arbiter of Ideals ability to go off. You get to put a card onto the battlefield. He now has protection from your opponent's creatures, so there's nothing they can do to block. There's no combat trick they can really pull here, other than just outright destroying the creature. And then you get to attack, and then next turn your inspiration will go off again.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's heroic, you know, you put some kind of tap effect onto it, which will get you your proc. Once again, this is kind of a limited situation. You tap it, you get to untap it with this, gives it protection. You get your heroic proc, you get whatever the enchantment was doing, and then you get this guy, you know, through all the way.
And then, you know, there's still Tromocratus. You know,
True.
protection from creatures. Now he's unblockable. 8 damage.
Yeah.
I gave it a 7. I really like this spell.
I gave it a 6 because this isn't going to win anything all on its own.
Yeah,
You need stuff to do this with.
Yeah.
What's the
So
next card here?
next we have Deepwater Hypnotist, creature Merfolk Wizard. For 1 and a blue, it's a 2/1, inspired. Whenever Deepwater Hypnotist becomes untapped, target creature an opponent controls gets -3, -0 until end of turn. Now, if you're in a regular draft and you're looking at your cards and maybe, you know, it's been passed around a few times and this is just this card and something else, the only satisfaction I can see you getting from this card is taking the other one and watching the person next to you have to take this card. If you get it in a seal, just put it under your table and act like you didn't have it.
Yeah, use it to stable out the table a little bit.
Just,
Here's the thing.
pretend you didn't actually get it.
Here's the thing. 9 times out of 10, people are going to play this because they need something for their devotion on turn 2. This is like a 4.
It doesn't even do that well.
I understand that, but it rounds out your curve. You're going to have to play it. You know what I mean? I would much rather do some other stuff. Like, if you're running solid blue, there's Nullify and there's some counter spells and stuff. I would much rather do a tempo hit and bounce them back to your hand.
Yeah, definitely.
But at the same time, you gotta consider the fact that I don't like her. I'm not saying she's great, but at the same time, I'm saying that it's possible that you're gonna have to play with this. That it might be one of those cards you look at and go,
well,
I'm gonna have to do this.
I hate it. Move on.
The next card we got coming up, it's actually a
Well,
reprint. This is a beautiful card in this set. It's Divination. Simple. 2 to blue. Sorcery. Draw 2 cards.
Draw 2 cards.
Can't be any simpler.
I like I said in this set. It's really good. I gave it a 6.
I liked it when they printed it up in Innistrad. I liked it when they reprinted it in the M14.
I believe they also printed it in. I don't know. Maybe was it in Ravnica? No, they had Inspiration.
No, they had Inspiration. I liked it every time they reprinted it. It's a great card.
I like every time they print this card. It's just it's a
it's
solid
fun.
3rd turn. It's gonna replace itself and then give you an additional card.
I don't think you should really play this on turn 3.
No, obviously not. But I mean,
unless there's literally nothing else you can do and your opponent's obviously not making any kind of threats at you. But this is definitely a turn 6 card, turn 5 card. You could draw something. You know, you could still play some other stuff
that you need.
You know, or maybe you can leave some mana open and counterspell. I say it's a 6. It's a solid card.
Yeah, definitely.
What do we got next?
Okay, next we have Eternity Snare. Enchantment aura for 5 and a blue. Enchant creature. When an Eternity Snare enters the battlefield, draw a card. Enchanted creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step.
I really don't like this card for 6.
I don't either. Especially for 6 because we're already seeing so many spells like Crypsis that untap it not manually for you, so you don't have to wait. You don't have to wait.
It's not just that. You're gonna put this on some big beefy creature
that just hit
that
you.
they just beat you up, and the chances are that because there's so much enchantment removal, that this thing is gonna go on there 1 turn. It's gonna go to their turn. They're gonna remove it, and then it's gonna pass 1 turn, and that's it. You just paid 6 mana
to draw a card.
To draw a card and to tap something for 1 turn.
I would just, to be honest, go back to the other spell. I'd just rather play Divination. I give this a 3 for limited. It's not.
This is
you're not going to
not very good. This is a 3.
No, this next one is actually one of your favorites.
This is Evanescent Intellect. It's 1 blue
more interesting.
for an enchantment aura. Enchant creature has pay 1 and a blue. Tap. Target player puts the top 3 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. It's very simple. This is a mill card. So if you're running mill, this is easily like a 7.
Yeah,
if this is not a mill deck, this is a 1. You're not going to want to use this to try to, add some mill effect to your inspired card. because it's 2 mana you gotta spend every turn. This is not a card you're gonna want to dabble in for heroic, because it's just not worth it.
But if you're getting that, if you're seeing the pattern in your draws and the cards you've received,
Like
this is easily an 8
because
for a deck that you're gonna do with that.
In pack 1, if you open this up and you see that this is in here, and then let's say you see, what's the black blue god?
That's Phoenix.
Phoenix.
The
If you
god
see
of the sea.
Phoenix, and you really think you have a possibility of pulling this off, pick up Phoenix. If this will table 100% of the time, unless someone else opened up Phoenix, in which case it's Jesus, be with you. Anyway, this is one of those things where you'll see a table, you'll get the chance to pick it up. It'll definitely help you kind of get things going. And in Sealeds, this is going to be something where you're going to look for those other cards to make that deck.
But
otherwise,
if you don't see that,
don't bother.
Yeah,
it's not worth its time.
It's just not. Yeah, it's just not feasible. You're not going to use it for like a way to just annoy your opponent.
This next card is actually a really cool card.
This is the cheapest of the Faded. This is Faded Infatuation. It's instant for triple blue. Put a token on the battlefield that's a copy of target creature you control. Then scry. If it's your turn, scry 2.
You know what? I can see people more oftentimes than not making a copy of their Sphinx or making a copy of something else on their turn, scrying, just so they could use the scry ability
to set up that inspired.
Yeah, for the next turn.
Not just that, but think about you got a creature coming at you, and maybe you have something that has a good tribute that can help deal with that.
Yeah.
You know? You are going to get the scry.
Or even the heroic. I mean...
Oh, yeah. Even
because it says target. You copy it. You just got your target for your trigger. For your heroic, I mean. You got your trigger for your heroic. You got a copy of him. He was already a sweet card as it is, so obviously you want more of him on the battlefield. You know, maybe do it before you attack so you can scry. And now you have a blocker. Yeah, you tapped up some mana. Sure. But you definitely got some value for the card.
I gave it a 6 just because all the Faded is a triple color, so it's gonna be hard to.
I think with the Faded, obviously, the triple color means you got to really main that color. But I don't want the Fadeds to be something you can splash. No. I don't want to be playing against someone with blue and red and see them play, main red and see them copy their Thunderbrute. I don't want to see that.
That wouldn't be good for you at all, actually.
That would be scary and mean and wrong.
So what do we got next here?
By the way, I gave Faded Infatuation. I gave that a 6. Yeah. Flitterstep Eidolon. Now, this is another one of the Eidolons. We've covered them all. If you guys want to see the other ones and what we rated them, check out our other videos. Colors. This is, I'll cover it both for its casting cost and its bestow. It's Enchantment Creature Spirit. It's a 1/1 for 1 and a blue, or bestow for 5 and a blue. That's hefty. Flutterstep Eidolon can't be blocked. Enchanted creature gets 1/1 and can't be blocked.
I said this before. I wanted to have hexproof.
You know what? I think that's a little bit much to ask because
I wanted to be Invisible Stalker.
When we saw that in Innistrad, it was such a ridiculous card.
It was so
People
good,
literally looked at that and went, I want to quit. I want to quit.
No, because you see it and you notice, you're like, okay, well, I want to block with hexproof. Sure,
but here's the thing.
Then it gets huge.
But here's the thing. In this set, are you going to bestow that? Are you really? No. I'll put this out for 2
as a 1/1 on block,
and I'll just start beefing this guy up.
Because we've seen enough enchanted.
Now, if you do draw him late game, you're not going to be like, oh wow, a Phantom Warrior.
No.
Garbage.
You're going to be like,
oh sweet, I got this thing I can throw on my beef.
My Arbiter of the Ideals just got awesome.
Or if it is really late game and you need something to just help your area worshippers get through, this will do it. And you've got the 6 mana, obviously, so then you're at least producing a token a turn.
Yeah. And then
you're getting in for 3.
And then obviously it procs any heroics if you place on anything with heroics.
True.
Excuse me.
As a creature, I gave this card a 6. As a bestow, I gave it a 5. Because as a bestow, it's much later.
I think that's a fair bet.
But I think with all of the new bestow cards, they've added a very beautiful curve to it. You're not going to be disappointed to draw this early in the game, and you're not going to be disappointed to draw this late in the game. Everybody, this is Ginger.
Hello, Ginger.
She's a very loving little dog. Anyway, Casey, let's go on. Let's see what the next card is.
Next, we have a creature that's not so loving. Floodtide Serpent. Creature Serpent. It's
it wants to lick your face. Yeah. It so wants to lick your face.
For 4 and a blue, it's a
all
4/4.
Of your faces.
4 power, 4 toughness. Floodtide Serpent can't attack unless you return an enchantment you control to its owner's hand. This cost is paid at attackers as attackers are declared.
So you can't like feign with this guy, and pretend to attack and then bounce an enchantment, like one of your ordeals or something. Like your ordeal is at 2, and you're like, I really want to keep putting token counters on stuff. Alright, I'll bounce it back to my hand, and I'm not gonna attack. Once you bounce it back to your hand, you're attacking.
Mm-hmm.
That is part of it. It's just like playing a spell.
I guess that would really just depend on where your priority would be. If you want the counter to go on first,
I think this
and
guy
then sacrifice it, or if you'd rather not. But then you wouldn't be able to attack with him at all.
I'm going to tell you this right now. I think this guy belongs in a whelming deck with the whelming wave. I think this belongs in that deck. These are commons. You could draw 1 or 2. You could even draw 3. And you know what? While it doesn't sound amazing, play these guys out. And even just with 1 enchantment, you can kind of build an army of krakens and octopus and serpents and leviathans.
If you have
beat your opponent to death.
If you've got that cheap enchantment, you can keep tossing to activate heroics. It's still not bad, and if nothing else, it's still a 5/5 for 1 blue. I mean, 4/4 for 1 blue.
The next card, I say for Floodtide Serpent, I would give it at 5.
Yeah.
But this next card is definitely much better. It's Kraken of the Straits. Now, it's a 6/6 creature Kraken. Obvious. Oh, it's a 6/6 flounder. No, it's a 6/6 creature Kraken. It's 5 and 2 blue. So it's 7 for a 6/6. I've paid more for less. Creatures with power less than the number of islands you control can't block Kraken of the Straits. Now, here's something really interesting I'd like to point out about this. You're probably playing this in a main blue color deck. So you're going to have about 5 or maybe even 7 islands. Maybe you're playing mono blue. You play this guy out. He's unblockable.
6/6 unblockable.
Heck yeah. I just paid 6 mana for my Eidolon of my Flitterstep Eidolon. I don't want to have to do that again. This guy's got unblockable built into him. Sure, I'll do it all day long.
But
he's a 5 because he is so big on mana cost and he doesn't do anything else. But he's a 5.
I only gave him a 4 because then if you're not playing the mono blue, if you're playing, not so much blue, and you've only got maybe 3 blue out, and you're just like, the island is just not coming up.
I think
he can still be blocked by creatures with 4 power.
I think this guy, like I said, I think he belongs in a whelming wave deck, where you build up an army of krakens and serpents and octopus and leviathans, and then you play whelming wave, and then you laugh at your opponent's face as he cries.
This next guy belongs in your local library. Mellitus Astronomer. He's a creature human. For 1 and a blue, he's a 1/3. I really like that. Heroic. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Mellitus Astronomer, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal an enchantment card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library. Now, in Theros, we saw one of my favorite cards, Omen Speaker. I loved bouncing her back and forth from my hand with easy spells like Voyage is In, because the Voyage is In let me scry, and then playing the 1/3 out for 2 felt satisfying with a scry too. Well, you're getting something similar with Heroic.
You could always use her as like a block and then bounce.
Exactly.
But with this guy, I think he's an awesome 1/3 for 2, and the best thing about him really is that if you're gonna beef a heroic creature, yeah, it's nice that they get beefier, but this one has the opportunity of returning the favor. You beef him with, say, just a simple
Nyxborn
Shieldmate. So you throw Nyxborn Shieldmate on him. You reveal the top 3. You look at the top 3 cards. Like, oh, cool. I got an aura on this one. Boom. I'll pull that. I'll put that in my hand. Now I'll play that on him. I got another enchantment. And they're not going into the graveyard, so you're not losing stuff. Mm. This isn't one of those cards where you feel like this is, I got this guy, but I just lost 2 land. I'm really screwing my mana curve.
Or I got my enchantment out, but I lost my Arbiter.
Yeah. So this is going to be one of those cards where you can kind of he rewards you for building him up. When you play spells that target him, he's going to give you another reward, and he's just going to keep building up your little enchantments.
For me, if you're running something like blue and you're relying on your enchantments, this is an absolute 7. He needs to go in your deck. He's a 1/3 solid defender for second turn.
I think he's a 6 in my opinion, but that's only
Yeah.
because of the fact that he doesn't do anything when he comes into play. He doesn't have any kind of evasion. You really do need to buff him up.
Yeah.
So I think he's a 6 in that opinion.
He does imply that you need
This
to do that.
this next card, though, in my opinion, is personally a 1, and I'll tell you why in a moment. Mind Reaver is a creature human wizard. He's a 2/1 for two blue solid 2 solid blue. 2 blue, 2/1. Now, I don't like him in limited. I love him in constructed. His first ability reads Heroic. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Mind Reaver, exile the top 3 cards of target player's library. Now, it's really sweet that they're exiled, because then they can't fetch them back. But he does something with those. Pay 2 blue, sacrifice Mind Reaver, counter target spell with the same name as card exiled with Mind Reaver. Chances of this ability ever actually meeting an end is really slim to almost 0 at all.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I could really see for him, and this once again comes down to, this is one of those mill cards. You play him out, and then turn 3 you play, Evanescent Intellect. You tap him, you mill them, so you just got 6 cards off that library. And then from time to time, you target him with something to, maybe give him a block or something, and you get some extra effect out of it. But other than that,
the people who are
he's
looking
not
at him
going to win you a game.
And reminiscing on the good old days of Void Mage Prodigy, he is not that card.
Yeah. This is going to be one of those cards where a lot of people are going to think that this is a great counterspell card, and they're going to be disappointed when they realize their opponent has the only duplicates they have of anything are all their garbage cards.
So
and you're never going to want to counter it.
He's a 1 moving on.
He's a 1. Nullify. What do you got on this?
Nullify is an instant counterspell for double blue. Wouldn't be very good if it was a sorcery counterspell.
The counter itself.
For double blue, counter target creature or aura spell. Now, my obviously the auras is that's pretty self-explanatory. You can get rid of bestows and things like that. My real question with this is, this has been eating at me for a while, actually, Eric, is can you counter a god that is coming into play that is not a creature?
Yes.
Because although creature type is...
Because here's the thing. He doesn't stop being a creature until he hits the field. And then the text reads, if your devotion isn't greater than 7 or greater, or 7 is less than 7. Let's be specific with this. If your devotion to his color or her color is less than 7,
let's not be sexist with this.
And racist, right? If it is less than 7, it's not a creature. That only accounts for it after it enters the battlefield.
Okay.
Remember, the card is literally printed with the word
creature.
Enchantment creature. So in every other field, it's an enchantment
and a
creature.
So, I mean, in its sense, I actually gave this counterspell a 6. I do like it a lot. It's hard to splash, but... I mean, okay, it's not as good as some of the other ones we're seeing.
I think in a main color blue, you're going to like this a lot. It's gonna hit your opponent. You got to remember, with blue, playing counter spells, you're playing super defensive. You're not just going to throw this out on turn 2 to kill off some worthless second turn drop. You're going to play your normal curve, and then turn 3 or 4 you'll use this to stop something that would have gotten kind of out of hand. So in that rank, I kind of put it at a 5. But I feel like if you're gonna splash blue, you're not playing with this card.
You're right. If you are gonna splash blue, there are clear better counterspells in the format.
In fact, the next card we got coming up is a very interesting piece for me because me and Kizzy have very strong differing views on this guy. It's the Nyxborn Triton. He's 2 and a blue. He's an enchantment creature merfolk, which means he has bestow. His bestow cost is 4 and a blue, and he is a 2/3. He has no abilities, so when he bestows,
they get no abilities.
He gives them 2/3. Now I'd like to point something out.
I don't know.
Nyxborn Shieldmate, remember him?
Mm-hmm.
So he gave
1/2
for
literally
2 and
half
a white.
the cost.
No. 2 and a white, right? 2 and a white. We've got 1 extra attack and 1 extra defense. So that's 2 extra colorless mana. I think it's there. And here's the thing. On turn 3, I like a 2-3. On turn 5, I don't mind putting this on something and making it much better. In fact, to be completely honest with you, I would much rather play this on, say, for instance, my Aries Sky Worshippers.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that this is gonna make her big enough to deal with anything on turn 5 when she goes to attack. You put this on her, she's now at 4/7. She's huge. She attacks. Whatever they throw at her is dead. And if it doesn't die, it's not killing her. And now you can start putting out bird tokens. And if she dies, you still get a 2-3, which is a fair body. And blue has some return, so you can always bounce him back to your hand and do it again. But I will admit, he's not as good as this next card. Now, I gave him a 5. Did you give him?
I only gave him a 3. I don't like this card.
What'd you give the next card?
The next card, I actually gave this card a high score. I gave it a 7. I really like this card a lot. Oracle's Insight. Enchantment Aura for 3 in blue. So not too hefty. We saw a 3 in a white earlier with the Sun Bond.
Did nothing.
That we hated.
So let's see
but this is an enchant creature has tap, no mana cost, so you just tap it, scry 1, then draw a card.
You know what I wish? The only thing I actually really wish about this card is it said may draw a card.
It's true.
Because if you put this on the Sphinx, you really don't want to draw that card.
I know. You don't want to scry it away, and you don't want to draw it. Because if you're like, oh, well, that's my guard card.
I wanted to put that into play now.
I don't want to pay mana for that.
I want to put that into play now. So okay.
But on certain cards, I just like I mentioned in a lot of our other videos that I like enchantments that you don't have to pay into. It doesn't make it feel so much like an artifact when you just have to tap it or the enchantment's doing things on its own.
You know what the other really nice thing about this is Scry is such a powerful ability. It almost feels like you're gonna go skip a land, draw a great card.
You know who I'm putting this on? I'm putting this on my Pain's here.
All right.
I'm putting this on my Pain's here.
All right, I see that.
I believe it really just gives an already good ability, a level of polish and control that you can just kind of.
I think I see that, but at the same time, I feel like your Pain's here is already kind of a hazard. Mm-hmm. Like you're already looking at it like, it's big enough. It's a big enough target as it is. Let's not just start throwing, because you got to remember, if you put this on something that's really worthwhile, and then they kill it, now you've lost this and the card that you really liked. Mm-hmm. You're double threat on your own card.
Well, then throw it on Sphinx's disciple.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So I gave that a 5 because it doesn't necessarily win you the game.
I gave it a 7.
It doesn't necessarily win you the game. You had to work on it a lot, and it is 4 mana.
No.
But I'm sure later on you could probably get a lot of stuff.
Now this next card got our strangest ranking that we've given so far.
Yeah, I think this is one of the strangest cards I've ever read in my life. I've been playing since Urza, and I read it like 12 times, and then I went online and I asked a judge to break it down for me, and about halfway through I think he had a brain aneurysm and died. It's Perplexing Chimera, 4 in a blue. He's Enchantment Creature Chimera. 3/3. And right there you're already like, I'm paying 5 mana for a 3/3. This thing better have like flying, or it must copy abilities or something crazy. It reads, whenever an opponent casts a spell, any spell. Remember, anything that isn't a land is a spell. Whenever you cast a spell, you may exchange control of Perplexing Chimera, and that spell. So you go turn 6. Dragon. I like that dragon. Give me that. Alright, you can have this junk. Dragon. Yay! Alright, now let's say it isn't a dragon. If you do, you may choose new targets for that spell.
Now in parentheses it says, if the spell becomes a permanent, you control this permanent.
Just like I said with the dragon. So, new instance. Your opponent plays Fated Conflagration, and he's targeting one of your sweet cards. You go Yeah, he's gonna kill your
Is it
planeswalker.
a kill cure?
You go. Here you go. You have this garbage card. I get Conflagration. I don't like that garbage card, and it's dead now.
Yeah, I don't. No,
I don't like Perplexing Chimera.
most people would. Most people think that okay, it's like that. You can just kind of sit behind it, and now your opponent feels like I can't play any of my more hard hitting spells because he's gonna toss Perplexing Chimera at me. That's one way to use him.
But here's the problem I have with Perplexing Chimera, and this is why it got the rating it got from me. You just gave it to him.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you don't kill it with something that he just gave you.
No, he's sitting behind it.
Yeah, if you played a counterspell and you wanted to prevent that from happening, like you're playing your dragon, you're playing red blue. You play your dragon. He's like counterspell, nullify, and you're like, here's a Perplexing Chimera. Give me your nullify, and then I'm gonna play something else to give the nullify a new target or something. I don't know how that would work. But you just don't want nullify to hurt your guy.
He still has to have a target.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway,
That'd be a dumb way to use it.
you know what I mean. Shut up. Stop hating on my dreams. Okay. Sorry. So you find a new way to get rid of this counter spell. Say it's a counter spell. So you counter the counter spell with itself. Anyway, so now that you've had this brain aneurysm and died on the table. Okay. So your opponent has a Perplexing Chimera. You get your dragon. He gets a Perplexing Chimera, and now you're like, all right, sweet. I'm going to play my Sphinx. And then he goes, all right, I'm going to take your Sphinx. Here's your Perplexing Chimera back. And you're like, no, wait, hang on. Let me go back. I don't really like this guy. He's so confusing, and at the same time, he's so aggravating.
I couldn't even rank him. I just put up question marks.
That's what I did too.
I couldn't because
I was he's so situational.
Right.
That 9 times out of 10, you're gonna play him, and you're gonna just go, all right, Perplexing Chimera. All right, he resolves. Go. And you're just gonna give him an awkward stare for 5 minutes.
I'm going to go. Our next spell, our next card is Retraction Helix. Instant for 1 blue. Until end of turn, target creature gains tap. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Now, the obviousness of this card is pretty easily seen. Obviously, you're going to use it to activate an Inspired to get that creature to tap.
I think this is something interesting, and I think Desi was trying to point this out earlier.
Who's Desi?
Destiny. Sorry, I abbreviate. Destiny. She's one of our co-hosts here on Gathering of Views. Here's the interesting thing. You can, let's say, alright, we're going to go back a second. Perplexing Chimera is out. You play Retraction Helix on your Perplexing Chimera after they play a spell. Now, you have Perplexing Chimera's ability on the stack, and you're going to choose their spell. So before that gets to resolve, you're going to go Retraction Helix, play it on your Chimera. Then you're going to tap your Chimera, and you're going to bounce your Chimera back. Well, no, because then you don't have that Chimera to trade.
But you can put it on one of your other creatures, and when Perplexing Chimera steals your opponent's spell, the Chimera goes back to them. You tap the creature.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Return Chimera to
yeah, that's
hand.
a very good point. Okay, so then you can put it
to its owner's hand.
So then they can't use Chimera against you.
So as she's pointing out, you put this on one of your other creatures. It's a static ability. It sits on their creature until the end of the turn. You give them the Chimera. You use Retraction Helix ability that you just put on one of your creatures to return the Chimera to your hand, and then you play it back out and you scoff at them with your dragon and Chimera dancing in their face.
Or whatever else you just got. Anyway, I like the Retraction Helix a lot because, like I said, the obvious way of using it is getting that that Inspired to go out. But there's many other ways to use it, as they're just...
Yeah, giving someone a brain aneurysm.
Right, yeah. Just...
I'm telling you, man, Perplexing Chimera is going to kill somebody tomorrow. Somebody is going to die tomorrow at the pre-release. They're just going to be foaming at the mouth looking at Perplexing.
But the cool thing is that you can use it to return any non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So you can use it in any number of ways, and it's an instant spell, so it can be used either offensively or defensively.
I think this is such a good card because there is actually a combo I mentioned before about this, and it has to do with the follower. What was it? What was
Kyora's follower.
Kyora's follower. Now we covered it in the blue green,
the multicolored,
the multicolored and artifact. So check it out. Now Kyora's follower says tap, untap target permanent, and basically you put this on a creature. You put this on an inspired creature. You tap them, you bounce their card back to their hand, you tap Kyora's follower, you untap, get the inspired effect, you then tap again, and then return another card back to their hand, and then during the next turn you get to untap and get the inspired again. So you get 2, possibly even 3 triggers off of a single thing, and it does work with your heroic stuff, and it doesn't say a return target non-land permanent. It doesn't say for your opponents only. So if you play this out and you need to bounce another card back to your hand to save it, it can be a combat trick. It could be it can be a lot of things. I think this is one really fun card that someone could play it at the beginning of the turn, let your opponent kind of forget about it a little bit, and then trick them at the end of their turn with it, because it says until end of turn.
Yeah, so you're like, oh, I'm just gonna give my Arbiter of Ideals real quick. I'm just giving Retraction Links for a little bit.
Yeah, don't leave it next to him. Put it in your graveyard so you kind of
because it resolves. So just go in the graveyard. Yeah.
But anyway, so I gave this a 5 because it's a lot of fun, but they can kill the creature when you go to play this, and then you get nothing.
I actually gave it a 6. I like it a little bit more.
Like I said, if they kill the target, it's garbage. It goes to the graveyard.
This next card, I'm not so great on. I'm not so excited.
You know what? Okay, let's go over it. It's Siren of the Famed Coast. It's a 3 blue for a creature Siren. It is a 1/1. Hang on. It has Tribute 3. Now we covered
the only blue tribute.
Yeah, the only blue tribute so far that we've seen.
Now we covered the tribute and inspired mechanics in another video that we went over both mechanics in depth, both for limited and constructed. If you'd like to go take a look at that, to give that a check.
Now it says when Siren of the Famed Coast enters the battlefield, if tribute wasn't paid, gain control of target creature. I'm going to tell you this right now, 9 times out of 10, this is going to be a 4/4 for 5 with flying. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but here's the drawback. When you play this and your opponent has garbage cards, like creatures, and all they have are tokens or something stupid that you wouldn't want.
Nothing you want.
Yeah, they have nothing you could ever really want. They're going to give you that garbage for a 1/1 for 5, and then you're going to go, oh great, I have a 1/1 Vigilant Cat token. Super good.
As to say, you're never going to get Brima's King of Oreos from this card.
Yeah, it's not happening. Not unless he's just been strapped with a bunch of dynamite and he's shipping it over to you just to watch you burn your face.
90% of the time, this is a 4/4 for 5.
And that's still an okay card. It's a
still
5.
Good. I mean, it's still...
But because of the fact that you can't play it when there's no creatures on your opponent's field. Because if you play it and there's no creatures on your opponent's field, he's gonna not pay the tribute.
He's gonna be like, yeah, sure, you can
try to steal nothing.
You can steal nothing, sure.
So it's a 4 because of the huge drawback.
I actually gave it a 3. I didn't like it.
If you're doing well, this isn't gonna do you any good.
No. But the next one is actually one we've talked about before, and I like it. I do like it. Sphinx's Disciple, creature, human wizard for 3 and double blue. It's a 2/2 with flying, inspired. Whenever Sphinx's Disciple becomes untapped, draw a card. Now, I've talked about a lot of other cards that have that all-powerful saying, draw a card. It's just card advantage. It's a very, very powerful thing to have in a limited setting when the number, I like to say the number of cards in your hand equal the number of options that you have.
But let's look at this realistically. Unless you find a way to tap this guy the turn he comes out to something stupid, he's not giving you that card on turn 6. So he's on turn 7. He's going to draw you your card because you can't attack until turn 6. And while he does have evasion, I really don't want to pay 5 mana for a 2/2 flyer. I don't care how many cards he draws me in the late game. I really want him to be awesome, but you
just don't see it.
Unless he was a rare, there's no way you're getting that ability for any less than 5. He's a 4.
4? I like him. I gave him a 5.
Yeah, I have a feeling
I
that's
like
gonna burn you in the end, bro.
But what about this next card?
Alright, this is Stratus Walk. This is a standard enchantment aura. It's a 1 and a blue. Enchantment creature. I'm sorry, enchant creature. It's a little late. Enchant creature. When Stratus Walk enters the battlefield, draw a card. I'm already kind of sold on this.
Replaces itself?
Yeah. Enchanted creature has flying. Alright, I got some evasion. Now, there's always a downside. Enchanted creature can block only creatures with flying. Now, I pointed this out to my brother, and he was a little astonished that it does say...
It's got some hidden technology.
It does just say enchant creature, not enchant creature you control. So you can enchant your opponent's creatures. Now, let's say hypothetically they have a wall that's just been stumping you this whole game.
They have their black oak, and it's just you can't get by it.
Yeah.
It's pumping. It's activating your opponent's
inspired,
and you just it's eating your creatures. You can't get by it.
So you throw this on that, and now you can walk right by it, and there's nothing they can do. On the other hand, if you have that one creature that needs to get over a bunch of ground defense, and it's the only creature that doesn't have flying, this could definitely help you out.
It just surprised me because I didn't actually think of it that way, you know, bro.
It is both
it's that hidden
defensive and
technology.
offensive.
That hidden
And
technology.
The Architect of Imagination.
Yeah, true. But
that no, because remember, you can only block creatures with flying, and all your creatures have flying.
Yeah, but if you put it on your opponent's...
true, if you put this on your opponent's creature, while you have Archetype of Imagination out, they will not gain the flying, but then they will only be able to block creatures with the flying.
So they can't block.
But here's the thing: all your creatures are already unblockable.
So
I don't see what. I guess you could put this on a creature just to draw a card, or put it on a creature to proc your own heroic. I don't really. Anyway, I think it's a 5 because it is a nice little enchantment and it does replace itself.
The next card is actually a card I really like. It's kind of a reprint of a core card that we saw in M14. Sudden Storm. Instant spell for 3 and a blue. Tap up to, you don't have to tap 2. Up to 2 target creatures. Those creatures don't untap during that controller's next untap steps. Scry 1. So you get the scry, which is always the good kicker. But as my brother Eric here told me, and it's a way I've used, like I said, it's a reprint of Frost Breath.
With one more mana for scry.
With one more colors for the scry.
Yeah.
So say you play this during your opponent's combat step before they attack. Tap 2 creatures that you were maybe not liking on the field. So they're tapped for that entire turn, unless they find some way to untap them. For your turn, for that player's next turn, and then for your turn again.
So you have 2 turns of attacks and 2 turns where you don't have to worry about blocking it.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a big creature that you're having trouble dealing with as far as it attacking you and creating a clock, this puts it on lockdown, gives you some turns to deal with it. On the other hand, if you're an aggressive deck, and this really is just a chance for you to lock down 2 blockers that have been creating some havoc, you can lock them down, get into solid turns of attack, and possibly just close up the game.
And then also, like I said, you're paying the scry one. You're paying 1 colors for the scry one. So then you take that into account as well as the fact that you are now planning to capitalize on those creatures being tapped by planning for the future.
Now, I gave that card a 6 because of its utility, both in defensive and offensive decks.
Yeah, exactly. I actually gave it a 7 just because I like scry. I do. I like scry.
So this next card here is actually really interesting. This is the first of the devotion cards we've seen in the new blue in the new set. This is Thassa's Rebuff. It's 1 and a blue, instant, counter target spell unless its controller pays X, where X is your devotion to blue. Now, I like it in a lot of ways, and I don't like it in some ways. The same reasons I talked about Acolytes. Acolytes Reward, and if you want to know about that, check out our review on White. And the same reason I didn't like Sanguimancy in black.
Thassa's rough. Yeah, it's not such a fantastic counterspell, really.
It's gonna be something that you're gonna want to use later on. So it's a later game. It's not your mana leak. It's
it's your crush leak.
Yeah, it's a really late game. It's turn 5 counterspell because they're not going to be able to pay 4 or 5 mana on top of whatever else they've just paid to play the spell.
Chances are, like, if they're playing out something heavy for 5th turn, they're using up the bulk of their mana. The thing I like about it, though, is even in late game, you can play a pretty powerful card, a pretty strong play, and just leave the 2 mana open.
Yeah, and make it look natural.
Yeah, and make it look like, oh, I just didn't have anything else to play.
Yeah.
Because obviously, 6th turn rolls around, your opponent plays nothing, and he's playing blue. Chances are he's got something.
Yeah.
So what'd you give it?
So I actually give this a 5 because if you're doing bad, this card doesn't help you.
I only gave it a...
But if you just need that one extra turn to finish your opponent off and they were about to play a field wipe, this helps.
I only gave it a 4 because, as we saw earlier, Nullify is a counterspell for double blue. This is, I think, the only other counterspell in this set. You can't really splash the Nullify because it's double blue. It's hard to splash.
And
you
can't really
splash it because you have to have the Devotion.
And I think that's a very important thing to remember. This isn't going to be one of those cards where you can splash it in just because, I might have one blue card out.
As Eric said, it's not your mana leak. So I had to give it a 4.
Yeah.
Next is actually a really interesting card, Tromokratis. Legendary creature Kraken. Doesn't really look like a Kraken for the art. Kind of looks like a big old turtle. For 5 and double blue, it is standalone, the largest creature, 8/8. Tromokratis has hexproof unless it is attacking or blocking. So you're not eternity snaring this guy. You're not stopping him.
This guy basically he is.
You're not stopping him with what we saw Sudden Storm. You can't tap him before he attacks because he's gonna have and his second ability reads Tromokratis can't be blocked unless all creatures defending player controls blocks it. Now in parentheses it says to know if any creature that player controls doesn't block this creature, it can't be blocked.
So it's not block it if able. It's not like, my creature can't block because it's tapped. Oh well.
If your opponent...
It doesn't join the party, it doesn't get to play. Now, this is something interesting to point out about Tromokratis is that he's immune to sorceries and he's immune to enchantments because you can't play an enchantment on him unless he's attacking. Obviously, if it has instant speed enchantments, it's kind of a specialty instance, but it's really more about... in limited. This is totally unenchanted.
Here's a pretty relevant question. So obviously, like other things might say, he has hexproof as long as he remains untapped. Not the same thing.
No. So at the end of combat, when it goes into the next main phase, it will actually remove him. Yeah, or remove him from attacking or blocking whatever he was doing, and he will gain hexproof again.
So he loses his hexproof through the entire combat phase. That is attacking and blocking phase.
Where he is actually implied in that instance. I would just say, to be completely safe, don't block with him. You're going to attack on the every turn anyway. He's an 8/8 for 7. You're going to be beating your opponent up.
That has pretty much built-in lure, or it's unblockable.
Yeah. And you know what? If you throw a bunch of creatures at this thing, he's going to eat them up.
He's munching them. So, I along with his power, I had to give him an 8 because there's other cards in this set that just make him hard to deal with.
Yeah. I gave him an 8 as well because he is a bomb, but he can be dealt with.
Now, this next card you actually had a pretty interesting
I actually have a really sweet combo with this next card. It's Vortex Elemental. And this is for 1 blue. Creature Elemental. It's a 0/1, which is what you kind of expect for 1 blue from blue.
But it's a very technical card.
But this is where your cool stuff comes in. For 1 blue, put Vortex Elemental and each creature blocking or blocked. So he can attack. Doesn't say defender on him. Blocking or blocked by it on top of their owner's library. Then they shuffle. So it doesn't just go, he goes on top of your library. You'll see Vortex Elemental on again in a minute. You might not, because he's going to shuffle them up. Now here's the downside. He has another ability for 3 and a blue. Target creature blocks Vortex. I'm sorry, 3 and double blue. 3 and double blue. Target creature blocks Vortex Elemental this turn if able. Now, obviously, it's 6 mana to kind of pull in a creature and just put him in your opponent's library again. That's kind of lame.
But
But
luckily,
there is a combination that could really put your opponent in a bad bind. Blue-green, as we saw in Theros, is a huge combo. And there is a creature called Noble Quarry. Now, if you want to know about him, check out our review on green. And I think I actually mentioned this in that one as well. Vortex Elemental can be enchanted by the Noble Quarry. You attack. Noble Quarry reads basically, enchanted creature gets 1/1, and all creatures able to block it if able, or all
Do
creatures
so.
able to block it do so. So basically, you attack with him. Your opponent's creatures pile up on top of him. You pay the 1 blue, and you put them all back into your opponent's library. And then you still get the Noble Quarry. So anything that maybe was tapped out, and they're going to go ahead and block with the next turn, is going to go on top of Noble Quarry. So you'll still have all that.
Yeah.
So he basically gives you 2 turns of opened attack, on top of kind of messing with your opponent's board state and just wiping it clean. On his own, he's still good. He's still going to block a beefy. He's not going to chump block him. He's going to eliminate it. Mm-hmm. You know, this is going to deal with some of those really mean, nasty tribute cards that we saw and kind of get rid of them for a little bit.
So I mean, in that sense that he can basically eliminate any of your opponent's heavier attackers for the cost of 1 blue mana. I did have to bump him up to a 6.
I only left him at a 5 because he's so easily dealt with. But at the same time, if you're an opponent and you're playing a spell to kill Elemental Vortex or Vortex Elemental, you're not doing that well to begin with.
Yeah.
So what's our last card here?
Our last card here is an interesting one you actually mentioned earlier, Whelming Wave. My brother Eric mentioned this for a Whelming deck for Constructed, but we're talking limited. It's a sorcery for 2 and double blue. Return all creatures to their owner's hands except for Krakens, Leviathans, Octopuses, and Serpents.
Now the reason why I mentioned this, and you can actually probably pull this off in a limited situation, where you pull this card, and maybe you pull a couple of Serpents and the Kraken of the Straits, maybe even Traumakratis if you're lucky. We do have some Octopus in Theros. There's a Kraken in Theros. There's a Serpent in Theros. So there's some stuff there you can look at. I think it's entirely possible with the proper setup that you could build a deck where you get a couple of them out, you create a little bit of what you might call a stalled board state, you play Whelming Wave, and then you swing to kill your opponent. Yeah, 4 mana means you can still counterspell
if you have the Leviathans and Serpents. If you have the sea creatures, if you got the sea monsters going for you.
At turn 8, on turn 8, you play the spell, you wipe the field, you swing unevaded, and then you laugh in your opponent's face, and then you still have 4 mana left over, or 3 mana left over to counterspell or bounce whatever they play next turn. So you have 2 free turns of just punching them in the face.
I did have to bump it up to a 5 just because of the low mana cost for a bit. For what is Evacuation?
Okay, Evacuation. Even if you don't have Krakens, even if you're splashing some blue and you just use this to help clear the board state once in a while, this is still going to do that every time. Maybe if you feel like
you can recover faster than your opponent from this, you know?
Exactly. And you know, the cool thing is it returns the creatures to their owner's hands. It doesn't do anything to those enchantments, those bestow cards, which will fall off and become creatures. You know, that's an important thing to remember.
Yeah.
They're not creatures until they become creatures. So you can even do something where you create a couple of little bestow cards, you play this, they become creatures, and then you can play bestows on them.
And then, you know, you can also use this to rid yourself of any pesky tokens that might be bothering you.
Exactly. This gets rid of tokens entirely.
Except for Kyora's tokens, because they're Krakens.
Obviously, yeah, because that'd be the greatest part with this. Is you get a bunch of Krakens and you bounce all your opponent's cards.
I've got 4 9/9 Krakens and I'm going to play this.
Yeah. Alright, guys. Well, that wraps it up for blue. Please check out all of the color reviews, including our ability reviews, mechanic reviews for Born of the Gods.
And also make sure to like and subscribe.